Okay, welcome back. Today, we're going to do our next part of our task list review, where we're going over terms, definitions, and then giving example questions of what you might see on the exam. So today, we're going to cover the last parts of assessment and then two parts of the skill acquisition task list section. So as always, if you like this video, like and subscribe. More videos coming next week. If you want our study materials, they'll be at our website or down below from one of these links, which I'll put in the comments and the descriptions. All right, let's get into it. So first off is B2, assist with individualized assessment procedures. So as an RBT, right, you'll be assisting your BCBA, your BCABA, your supervisor, okay, in determining what are the needs for your client, okay? And when we say individualized assessment, that's what we mean, right? Assess the individual for the needs. This can be curriculum, this can be developmental, it can be social skills, okay? So as the RBT, you'll observe the client in the natural environment, you'll report on what you see to your BCBA, you'll conduct preference assessments, and you'll assist in reinforcer assessments, you'll assist during analysis, you'll collect data, provide client information, and assist and conduct interviews. And then finally, you'll probe client skills. So what is a probe? Okay, a probe is when we ask a client to do a skill that we're unsure whether or not they know it. And that's it. Okay, so if you're not sure if they know 2 plus 2, you would ask them, hey, what's 2 plus 2? And see what they say. You want to see, are they capable? Are they not of completing this skill? Okay, so that's it. As an RBT, that's what you're doing when you're helping assess individuals. Okay, you're just assisting your BCBA through one of these various means. Okay, typically it'll be either interviews, okay, collecting data, and probing. Okay, you're going to be doing a lot of probing for your BCBA and for your client. So let's look at our question. During session, Bobby asks his client to sweep and mop the floor, fold laundry, and vacuum. Bobby has never seen the client perform any of these life skills before. Bobby collects data but does not assist the client. What is Bobby doing? So without even reading the answer choices, what is Bobby doing here? Okay, he's asking his client to do all these skills that he's never seen before. Okay, he's trying to find out, can they do it? Can they not? Is this something we need to teach? Is this something we need to work on? Okay, therefore Bobby is doing what? Okay, is he probing? Is he shaping? Is he doing errorless learning, or is he punishing the client? Well, we know he's not punishing the client, right? Nothing's being added, nothing's being removed, and no behavior is changing. Okay, there's no behavior decreasing in this particular scenario. Okay, so he's not punishing. Errorless learning, is he assisting the client? Is he making sure the client doesn't do any of these tasks wrong? No, he's just asking them to do it and watching them do it. So errorless learning is wrong. Is he shaping? Is he reinforcing any approximations? No. What did he do? All he did was ask the client to perform the task and then observe. Can they do it? Can they not? Therefore, the answer is probing. B3, assist with functional assessment procedures. Okay, so again, as the RBT, you'll be assisting with these assessment procedures. Now, what is a functional assessment? A functional assessment is trying to determine the cause and effect between the environment and behavior. Basically, we want to know the function, okay? What is the function of the behavior? Remember our functions, okay? Escape, tangible, attention, and automatic. All behavior has a function, and before we can treat the behavior, we need to determine the function. So that's what we're doing here, okay? There are three types. There's the experimental, there's the descriptive, and the indirect. Experimental is also known as a functional analysis, okay? And that's when you're explicitly arranging antecedents and consequences, okay, to determine the function of a behavior, right? So you're basically arranging and contriving the environment, okay, and adding and removing things, okay, to explicitly determine the function, okay? Very experimental. You'll assist with these, okay, by maybe taking data or actually working with the client while your BCBA takes data, okay? But this is a explicit way to find the function. Descriptive is just taking data, okay? So it's direct observation in natural conditions. So you're not contriving the environment All right. You're just observing what's going on in the environment. Okay. Observing the client in their natural habitat, basically. Okay. And then indirect, you're not observing the client. Okay. Indirect is just interviews, checklists, surveys, anything where you're just talking to someone or asking about the client. Okay. You're not actually watching the client. Okay. So, which of the following is not an indirect assessment? So, what do we know about indirect assessments? Indirect assessments, okay, are when you're conducting interviews or talking to the client's parent, okay? You're just asking questions, taking checklists, taking surveys, things like that. Which of the following does not involve that? Well, we know interviews are indirect. We know checklists are indirect. We know surveys are indirect. And what is descriptive? Okay, descriptive is the opposite, right? Descriptive is direct. It's direct observation. Okay, so C is your answer. Okay, more functional assessment procedures, right? So again, experimental is functional analysis, okay? And which of the following is the best way to determine the function of a behavior? Okay, is it our descriptive assessments? Is it our indirect assessments? Is it probing, or is it our functional analysis? Well, indirect assessments, okay, are the worst way to determine the function because we're not actually watching the client do anything. Okay, we're just asking questions, which can be misleading. Okay, because when you're interviewing people and people are filling out surveys and checklists, okay, they can lie, they can be biased, they can misremember things. Okay, so a lot can go wrong with indirect assessment. You should never ever determine the function of a behavior based solely on indirect assessment. So that's out. What about probing? What did we say probing was? Probing, we're simply asking somebody to do something. Okay. All we want to know is can they do it or can they not? So we're not trying to determine the function with probing. Descriptive assessment or direct assessment, what are we doing there? Well, okay, we're directly observing the client, right? But are we experimenting? Are we contriving anything? No, we're just watching the client in their natural environment. Okay, so we're not actually manipulating anything. So descriptive direct assessment can assist in determining the function, but what's the best way? The best way is a functional analysis, okay? This is the absolute best way to find out the function of a behavior, okay? You're explicitly arranging antecedents and consequences, okay? And trying to determine what effect do they have on the behavior. Okay, one more, assist with functional assessment procedures. Again, we have three types: experimental, descriptive direct, or indirect. So question, when BCBAs and BCABAs conduct functional assessments, they are looking for the reason the behavior occurs or the function of the behavior for a client. All of the following are possible functions except what? All right, so that's the entire goal, right? What function does the behavior serve? Every behavior has a function, and before we can treat behavior, we need to determine that function. So all of these are functions except what? Satiation, attention, automatic, tangible. So you should have this down, okay? You should know your functions. It's the most important thing as an RBT to understand and know, okay? What are the four functions? Whenever you're out with a client and something happens, your BCBA or your supervisor is going to first ask you, what is the function, okay? And you need to know what four you can choose from, okay? So we know tangible is a function. We know automatic's a function. We know attention is. Satiation is not a function, okay? What's the fourth one? What's missing? Attention, automatic, tangible, and escape, okay? So those are the four functions. When we're doing functional assessment procedures, that's what we're trying to determine. Why is the behavior happening? It's got to be one of these four things, okay? All right, C1, identify the essential components of a written skill acquisition plan. So skill acquisition plan, right, is your programs, is your treatment plan, okay? Whatever you want to call it, it's what we're teaching, right? What do we need to work on? Okay. What socially valid things do we need to teach the client? And when we're working on this, there's a clear way to do it, okay? There's clear steps to getting a skill acquisition plan, okay? And for this one, you just need to be familiar with the steps, right? That's all there is to this particular task, okay? And the best way to do it is to go through these, okay, with a skill in mind, right? So for example, number one, identify a skill deficit, okay? So let's say our skill deficit is shoe tying. So first we would say, okay, our skill deficit is shoe tying. Two, create a goal to address the deficit. So our goal would be client independently ties shoes within 6 months. That's our goal. Three, identify measurement procedures. Well, how will we identify, or how will we measure this behavior? Okay. Well, obviously we're going to observe, you can observe them. Okay. So you can do trials to criterion. Okay. You can do duration, how long it takes them to tie the shoes. Okay. The point is, how will you measure the skill to determine if they're hitting the goal? Okay. Four, collect baseline. Remember, what is baseline? Baseline data is our data before intervention starts. So basically you're probing, right? You would ask the client, tie your shoes, and you would take data on it, okay? Before you teach them anything, how good are they at tying shoes? Can they get halfway there? Can they do none of it? Okay. That baseline is going to guide the rest of our procedure. Okay. So baseline happens before intervention. Once we have baseline, okay, now we select and implement our procedures. Okay. So are we going to task chain, shoe tying? Okay. How are we going to teach shoe tying? Okay. And then RBT, your primary role, right, is implementation. So you implement the skill acquisition procedure for shoe tying. You teach. Then what? As you're teaching, what are you doing? You're collecting data. Remember, we're collecting data on everything. Okay. Data drives our decision. Everything we do is based on data. Okay. So as you're teaching, you're collecting data to determine how effective your teaching is. Okay. That data is going to tell you, are you effective or are you not? So if you're not effective, what do we do last? We modify the procedure if necessary. Maybe you are effective, okay? Maybe your teaching is going really well and all your data shows that they're increasing their ability to tie shoes. Therefore, you would not need to modify that procedure, okay? So do that a few times, right? It becomes second nature and is very common sense once you break it down like that, okay? Don't overcomplicate this part, right? Just know that you start by identifying a skill, and then the last step would be modifying it if necessary, okay? Everything in between is very straightforward, right? Pick a skill, get a goal, how are you going to measure it, baseline, implement, and then modify, okay? So question, when writing and implementing a skill acquisition plan, which of the following is not part of the RBT's role? So you have several different roles in the skill acquisition plan, okay? Will you collect baseline data? Yes, okay. You will be asked to collect data on baseline. Will you collect data on the skill? Yes, of course. That's your primary role is implementation, but you're going to be, as you're implementing, right, what should you be doing? Collecting data. So you're going to be collecting data every session, every day, on and on, right? Implement. Of course, implementing is your primary role, okay? As an RBT, that is your main job, your primary job description, your primary role. So C is in. Modify the plan. Should you modify treatment plans and skill acquisition plans and behavior plans? No, that is not your job. That is not your role. You're not qualified, okay? It doesn't mean you're not capable. It means you're not qualified, all right? If you think something's not working based on the data, you can go to your BCBA and you guys can discuss it. And that really is how it should be done. Working as a team, collaborating, okay? But you should never go into a session and say, well, I've mastered this skill, so I'm going to start opening these other skills. Or I don't think this procedure is working, so I'm going to try this, okay? If you're going to do that, you need to communicate that to your supervisor or BCBA and let them give the approval, let them modify the procedure, okay? And then you can go back to what? Collecting data, implementing, collecting data, okay? So your sweet spot is right here, collecting the data and implementation, okay? Your BCBA is going to work to identify the skill, creating goals, and then modify that procedure. So what is not part of your role is modifying the plan. Okay, C2, let me fix it real quick. C2, prepare for session as required by the skill acquisition plan. So now we're learning, right? Now we're taking steps to actually being RBTs, okay? We've talked about measurement, we've talked about preference assessments, we've talked about functional assessments, okay? We've created our skill acquisition plan, and now it's time to prepare for session, okay? So as an RBT, what do you need to do to prepare for session, okay? Well, first you need to read the acquisition plan, of course. You need to know what skills you're teaching. You need to determine what happened in the prior session, read the session notes, always know what happened before you get to session, okay? Typically, you're going to be working on a team, and you need to know if the client mastered anything, if anything new was open, are there new behaviors, are there any new measurement systems, okay? All that's very important. So before every session, read the session notes from the past session. Then you select your programs. So what skill acquisition procedures are you going to run that day? Okay. Sometimes you'll be able to run everything. Sometimes you'll be able to do all skill acquisition, and sometimes you won't. Okay. So that's part of your planning. Okay. What are you going to do that day? And then once you know what you're going to teach, okay, what skill acquisition procedures you're going to run that day, gather your materials, prepare your materials, including data collection, okay, and get ready for session. All this should be done before session, okay? When you show up to session, you should be ready to go, okay? You should know what you're gonna run. You should have your materials, okay? You shouldn't need to spend 30 minutes reading notes and getting yourself together and gathering materials, okay? We only have a limited time with our clients, and we need to use that time wisely, okay? So you should be prepared before every session. Now, this is difficult for new RBTs in the beginning because it's kind of overwhelming. But eventually, you're going to be on a session or a client for so long that will be second nature, okay? You will come to session knowing exactly what you need to do and what you're going to do that day. Still, you should always read session notes before and understand what's going on outside of your session, okay? So, question, when implementing skill acquisition plans, RBTs will often work on teams. In order to prepare for session, RBTs should always what before deciding on materials and programs for their upcoming session. So, what should you do, okay, before every session? A, ask the BCBA what should be done before every session. Now, you might say, well, I want to communicate with my BCBA, right? I should be always talking to them. Yes, that's true. But you are expected to be self-sufficient, okay, and understand enough about the client to where you don't need to ask your BCBA every single day what should be done, okay? You should develop your own plan based on the treatment plan and the skill acquisition plan, okay, and go from there. So if you have a specific question, certainly ask your BCBA, but you shouldn't always be asking the BCBA what to run and what materials you need, okay? That's something you should know. A is out. B, modify the skill acquisition plan based on what you think should be done. Well, what did we just talk about? Is modifying the skill plan part of your role? No, right? You're implementing, you're taking data, modifying the skill plan on what you think should be done is not your role. In that case, talk to your BCBA and present your idea. But that is not part of what should be done before session. C, conduct 30 minutes of parent training. Okay, so one, right, is your role parent training? No. You might assist in parent training, okay, but that's not your job. Two, okay, should you be doing 30 minutes of parent training before every session? Not necessarily. You know, maybe that's built into the plan, okay? And when the BCBA is out there, y'all do parent training. But if you're out there for your typical daily session, right, without the BCBA, you shouldn't be doing 30 minutes of parent training. You shouldn't be doing any parent training, okay, without the BCBA present. So C is out. D, review all notes from prior sessions and decide how you will proceed. Yes, you want to know what happened before your session. You want to know what happened if your session is on Thursday, what happened on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Okay. Find out, get the history, okay, and let that guide what you're going to do that day. The D is the answer. Okay, So that's it for today. 3 more videos coming next week. Again, like and subscribe if these are helpful. Check out the website. All the study materials are there. Study materials will also be down below in the comments and descriptions. Any questions, email me, leave a comment below. Okay. Keep working hard. It's going to pay off. You can do it. I promise. Okay. Don't give up. And as always, study hard.